a football-friendly match between the Netherlands and Denmark that took place just this weekend is going to be remembered for reasons that go largely beyond just the sporting matters or the scoreline. Now, it is worth noting that Netherlands, who were the home team in this case, ended up winning the match 4-2. Yet that would matter little in the grand scheme of things. This is because this was the match that saw the return to the national team of one Christian Eriksen of Denmark. Eriksen, it is worth remembering, had not played a game for Denmark after he suffered a cardiac arrest in their opening Euro 2020 game against Finland last year. In fact, the incident that took place had many fans scared for the well-being of Eriksen, never mind even the fact that he could continue playing on. Yet, less than a year later, he's not only made a competitive comeback in club football, he has also done the same internationally. And it is the kind of story that even the best of movie scriptwriters could not possibly come up with. But what is it that has actually led to all of this thus far? What is it that Christian Eriksen has had to face in his entire bid to not only recover from the cardiac arrest, but also make a successful comeback that is seeing him continue to operate at the highest of levels, something that most fans would not have even had in their minds the day he suffered that cardiac arrest? Well, we're going to take a deeper look at that. But before we look into what is happening now, it is important to take a look back into the past. And for that, we're going to go over the timeline of events that led to Eriksen hitting rock bottom, but then also working very hard to come back from that. Now, on June 12th, 2021, as we can see, he had suffered a collapse, he had suffered a cardiac arrest and collapsed during Denmark's opening Euro 2020 game against Finland. The scenes were unfortunately broadcast live and in many other parts of the world, and it was a traumatizing thing to say the least, because football fans around the world cared little about the match after that point, but just wanted to know that Eriksen would be okay. Eventually he was revived and the match did go ahead, although there was some controversy in that regard. Of course, news reports soon came out that Eriksen was fine, and 3 days later, on June 15, 2021, he posted a post on Instagram confirming that yes, given all circumstances, he was indeed alright. 3 days later, the Danish Football Federation said that he had undergone surgery and that he was now okay, but he would not be taking any further part in Euro 2020. Of course, now that he had surgery, he had been fitted with a defibrillator in his chest, something that was needed due to irregular rhythmic patterns noticed in his heart. That, something that could actually save his life, was something that ended up ending his football career in Italy. Eriksen, it is worth remembering, was at that point plying his trade for Inter Milan, where he had just won Serie A, the domestic league over there. But Italy's sporting regulations are such that players who have the defibrillator put in cannot be playing professionally. That meant that there were plenty of question marks hanging over Eriksen's future, and despite all of that, he began training with his youth club in order to make a comeback. But in December 17th, maybe 15 days after he had started training for his comeback, Inter Milan and Eriksen mutually terminated the contract, which, when you think about it, makes sense given that Eriksen would not have been able to play in Italy. Now the next question was, where would Eriksen go next? He was linked with a move back to Tottenham and even Ajax, where one of his former teammates, Daley Blind, also plays whilst having a defibrillator fitted into his chest. Eventually, Eriksen stunned everyone by signing for newly promoted London side Brentford. Now, Brentford are currently in the Premier League, but in January 31st, in fact, was when Eriksen signed for them. At that point, their situation was looking just a little bit precarious. However, the signing of Eriksen was seen as a real coup, helped of course by the fact that their manager Thomas Frank is also from Denmark. And since then, he has gone on to make his comeback into the professional sport at club level, and thus he got called back, and he not only got called back into the side, but when he came on as a substitute against Netherlands, he scored a goal that was typical Eriksen. It was a beautifully placed shot, and it was with practically his first touch of the match. And you could see the emotion just pouring out of him when he scored that goal. And in fact, we're going to look at some of the reactions that came on social media after that goal was scored, and to say the least, it was one of unanimous joy across the board. 10th Media here says that, it was exactly 287 days after that terrible moment of the Euros when Eriksen has scored for his nation again, just 2 minutes into being on the pitch. That is actually quite amazing when you think about it. There's another one, which is you can see from the account, where he says, has there been a greater success story than the recovery of Christian Eriksen? Absolutely brilliant to see him score on his international return for Denmark yesterday, and what a finish with it. Absolute class act. Have to agree on all fronts. Beautiful finish. It didn't look like he was gone. He was back like he never left. And you can see here there's a bit of a reaction from a fan cam, and it says that even the Dutch fans cheered following Christian Eriksen's goal. Now there's a bit of background which I can give you here, which will be a little interesting. The match was played in the Netherlands, but it was played in Amsterdam. As for most football fans would know, Christian Eriksen spent a huge chunk of his career, his early days, playing for a club in Amsterdam that is very popular around the world, and that is Ajax. Thus, there is a certain fondness attached to Eriksen in that particular city. Hence, even without that, of course, given the circumstances, he was going to get a hero's welcome. But for the Dutch fans who were there, it was basically like seeing an adopted son of theirs make a comeback, and what a beautiful moment it was indeed. Yet, if we're looking at social media reactions, perhaps the best one is reserved for Eriksen himself, who, after the match, just tweeted out saying, "Can't say how much I've missed this feeling." And you know what, Christian? I have to agree with you here. I don't think Christian Eriksen is one of the finest players of his generation. And when that cardiac arrest happened, many feared that, maybe we'd seen the last of him. I mean, this is not the first time it's happened. There have been instances before, including with the likes of Fabrice Muamba, where they suffered a cardiac arrest and then were really unable to make a comeback at the top level of the game. Many feared that that would be what happened to Eriksen, but of course with the caveat that as long as he was healthy and around. But he's now not only healthy and around, he's also playing football as if he never really had that much of a break to begin with. The next question, of course, is what does the future really hold for Eriksen? I mean, he signed for Brentford, but he's currently only signed on a 6-month deal. However, that could and should change given the kind of impact that he's made for Brentford this season in the Premier League. I mean, he's injected a creative spark into the side that was to a degree missing from a side that plays some good, hard-working football, might not necessarily have had the creative spark needed to sustain that kind of form that they showed in the beginning of the season. Eriksen has been much welcome in that side, and it would be the least of surprises to see his contract extended by another year or two, depending on what the Brentford hierarchy said. Of course, there's also the small matter of his international career now that he's made a comeback. I mean, when he first, was recovered from the entire situation, he did say that my dream is to play the 2022 World Cup with Denmark. Now, Denmark have qualified, and with Eriksen now coming back into the side, it seems very likely that he will be one of the players leading the charge for Denmark when they do make it to Qatar 2022, when they are boarding that flight, when they start their preparations, and when they take to the field for their first match. I mean, lest we forget, Denmark made a pretty good fist of things even in Euro 2020 without Eriksen. They made it to the knockout rounds of the tournament. They played some very good football, and granted, some of that might have been over the fact that they were unified in support of their friend, and they wanted to do well for him. But there's no taking away from the fact that the Danish football side do play some good football, and therefore they can really do well when it comes to the Qatar World Cup, which is going to be later this year. And there is no little doubt over the fact that the charge will and should probably be led by Christian Eriksen, one of their most creative players ever, and definitely one of these players who you need to be having around in your squad if he's fit and available. And luckily for football fans around the world, he is both. And that is it for this video here today. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. Let me know in the comments if you want to have a conversation about something. We'll be more than happy to engage. Definitely subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you know when exactly it is we are posting new videos. You'll be the first to know. You can check it out. Again, I'm Shane Dias. Thank you very much for joining us in this video. This is goodbye for now, but we'll see you again very soon.